Can you hear us now? Hey, we are live from Electronica 2022. Live from Electronica 2022. Can you hear us? We're live from Electronica 2022.
Yeah, I'm Stuart, joining us here from Elektor at the Electronica stand.
And this is Jens from Elektor.
And we have a guest coming pretty soon. We're going to see if he's queued up here.
Okay.
Jens?
Yes.
Is he around?
Hello.
Everything's fine. We're all good.
Hello.
Okay.
Okay.
And is our guest here?
Our guest is not yet, so we'll get started anyway. Okay.
Okay, sure. Sounds good.
So, hello and welcome to Electronica 2022. This is the Elektor Engineering Insights Mash-up. Yes, we've taken the best of Elektor video live streaming and brought them together. On my right-hand side here, I have Jens Nickel. He's part of the Lab Talk team. Unfortunately, our colleague Mathias has fallen out ill this week, so he's not been able to join us. And the other guy, very, very important to the content creation at Elektor, making sure the magazine is filled with all those exciting things that you enjoy, is CJ Abati,
Hello.
Content Director. Great to have you both on
Thanks.
the show.
Hello.
So yeah, we're here at Electronica. Now, Electronica is the biggest electronics and semiconductor exhibition in the world. It takes place every 2 years in Munich and also in other locations around the world. And if you're interested in how semiconductors and electronic passive components, discretes, are manufactured, what's new, what's going on, software solutions around there, services, sourcing, distribution, anything you want to know, this is the place to be. We have about 17 halls here. Every year that this event takes place, we have 70,000 visitors coming along from over 100 different countries, 3,000 exhibitors and 500 journalists. So we belong to part of that team as well. We've been walking around the show, talking to everybody here, finding out what's new, what's cool, and what's coming up in 18 halls. And it's everything from components, software solutions, everything you need to make this industry work. So that's what we've been doing. And we've got lots of interesting things to talk about on the show today. The first thing I think we were trying to do is get an interview in place with one of our partners. We're announcing a partnership with a very important industry leader. We're still waiting for them to join us on the phone. So in the meantime, what I'd like to do is a quick roundup of what we've been seeing at the show and how the week has progressed. So the show started on Tuesday, today's Thursday. I'll come over to CJ first. How's the show been for you?
It's been great. It's been a couple years since I've been here, but it's nice to be back. For me, the first thing that jumped out was auto. What type of electronics are going into the automotive industry? EV charging is all over the place. Sensor systems for brakes and lighting.
Yeah.
So that was the first impression I had. I mean, there's actually cars throughout the entire show.
I totally agree. I have seen many, many cars.
Yeah, we even have one at the Elektor booth, a race car. But yeah, so my first impression was automotive is big.
And I think the reason for that is obviously the electrification of vehicles. We're seeing electric vehicles making a huge impact. Many governments are encouraging the reduction of CO2.
Yeah.
So we want to get electric vehicles onto the road, and semiconductors and electronics is needed to make that happen, isn't it? That's the key thing.
Yeah.
I think we also saw it was, I can't remember which stand it was on, but there was the Mercedes that actually broke the 1,000 kilometer on a single charge journey.
Yeah, cool.
And the interesting thing about that with those efficient vehicles is a lot of the focus, at least in the powertrain side of things, is on vehicle efficiency and making sure we get as much of the energy out as possible out of the batteries and into the wheels. And one of the technologies that's doing that are new power switches. So in the past, we've used silicon. Silicon's been a standard ever since the 1950s, 1960s, since it sort of kicked off the electronics industry. But today we're looking at what's called wide bandgap technologies, and those are silicon carbide and gallium nitride. And in the automotive industry, where we're talking about kilowatts of power, it's silicon carbide or SiC which is really making that possible. So we're seeing very, very efficient, high efficiency conversion systems known as traction inverters being built into vehicles, and that's what the semiconductor industry is innovating in order to give us that extended range.
That's been a little bit of a theme all year too, because you reported on that earlier in the year and touched on it in one of your previous shows.
Yeah.
So,
And Jens, what's caught your eye at Electronica this year? Any good stuff?
It's today and yesterday. It was very, very busy.
Okay.
To say it was really crowded at some booths. So yeah, I think all the people are enthusiastic that Electronica is taking place again. So lots of them took the chance to go to Munich and see what's going on.
Fantastic.
So that's my first impression.
Super. Well, I'm pleased to say that we've managed to get hold of our famous face. You may recognize him as an industry leader. It is the founder of Arduino, David. David, you're joining us. Can you hear us okay? So, I can't hear him. So I don't know if there's something that needs to change there. Do I need to put some headphones on, or are we going through the stereo system?
David, you can hear us?
Yeah, he can hear us fine.
That's half.
That's
We are half the way.
half the solution. And and
Hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
perfectly. Thank you
Super.
ever so much for joining us. So I'm just going to go back to CJ quickly as Director of Content here at Elektor. Tell us a little bit about some of the specials that we do with some of these exciting businesses that partner with us.
Yeah, so we should be good at connecting with David now, because for the past few months we've been working with Arduino on a special guest edition, guest edited edition of Elektor. So we're happy to announce that here today at Electronica. And that will be coming out in December. And I can share
Artwork.
some artwork. This is a teaser of the magazine cover. So yeah, we did a guest edited edition of Elektor last year with SparkFun Electronics that went really well. And so this year we wanted to step it up. And of course, working with Arduino is like a dream for everyone on our team. So we were very excited and happy when David and the founders agreed to work with us. So yeah, we've been working on it for some months. Readers can expect it in English, Dutch, German, French, and Italian in mid-December. And then we'll also come out with the bonus edition of the magazine with extra content for about 4 weeks after that.
Great.
Yeah.
So David, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, hello.
So tell us a bit about the magazine. What's it like to contribute to a magazine and find interesting things to say in articles? I guess you must have loads of different projects and topics to cover.
Yeah, well, I've been authoring articles for Elektor in the past, but never really like a full magazine. I have to say, it was quite a lot of work. You know, we made I don't know how many interviews, but it was very interesting to actually get a chance to actually go back to the community and ask people about what projects they're working with, and be able to like showing some of the interesting things that you have been collaborating or contributing to the community for many years now.
So how many people on your side actually contributed to the magazine?
I don't know exactly. I mean, okay, from the Arduino, let's say from the Arduino company, we had at least 5 people from the content team that were actively contributing with articles, but then we also ran interviews to a bunch of old people that were too busy to write the articles themselves. For example, with Martino, our head of firmware, we ran 2 different articles, one for the printed magazine and one for the digital edition.
Yeah.
So he's a really busy guy. It was really funny because we made 2 very special things, like really low-level hacks, like how to run Microsoft DOS, for example, or on Portenta boards and so on. So yeah, I cannot tell you exactly, but from the company, probably like 5 people directly, up to 10 people indirectly, and from the community, we reached out to another like 10 people or something that were really glad to contribute right away. So I think we had too much material.
Yeah.
We have done something for us to speak, probably.
Yeah, it's a thick edition. I'll give you some stats. So 140 pages. Then there's the bonus edition. We have over a dozen projects. So Elektor, the community members need projects. We're doing deep dives into Arduino solutions like Arduino Cloud, Arduino Pro. You're going to learn about David's personal electronics workspace, the future of Arduino, MicroPython with Arduino. So it's really touching on something for everyone, and we're really excited about it.
Now, I was really excited because CJ came to me and asked me to write up some of the interviews that were done, and I just find it amazing. So when we think back a decade or more to when Arduino started, with the Arduino Uno, with the Arduino IDE, it was very straightforward, and then many boards came. But since then, you've really branched out. We've got the Portenta, we've got the more business-focused elements of Arduino. There's support in there now for MicroPython, for example. Is this what you imagined when you started?
Oh, I mean, the obvious answer is no. I mean, yeah, we never imagined to be halfway to world domination. Okay, that was another joke. But yeah, of course, we were very interested in creating technology for easy or make it easier the access to learning our technology. And then at some point we realized everybody were using this kind of technology, so we understood that we could enter into other contexts, like the engineering context, for example, and so on. And so I'm really glad that we managed so many interesting things. Now we have over 60 projects ongoing at Arduino, both software, hardware, cloud. So it's a quite impressive amount of work that we're doing. I mean, when our new investment partners look at our work, they were really in shock. Like, how can you make so many things?
Yeah.
That was their first impression. But of course, when you work with a community of people, then you can really branch out like a lot of work and delegate in good ways and just take care of like the critical parts and make sure that all people are properly rewarded for what their contributions are.
Now, when we were interviewing, I got an opportunity to dig into lots of different groups of people at Arduino, and one of the interesting things was the upgrade of the IDE. You've now got the IDE version 2 fully released. It's obviously been in a beta process for a while and people had some chance to try it. What's it been like since the launch of version 2, and what do you think the value is for the Arduino community there?
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't know if you've tried it, but it's like about 1,000 times better user experience. You know,
yeah.
I mean, I really love the Arduino IDE version 1. I mean, I worked with it until recently because I keep on teaching at the university, so I need to have something that is extremely reliable, that people can trust, and that have like a consistent user experience among different platforms. So one of the things of Arduino's IDE version 2 was that it had to respect the user experience for version 1, plus add a lot of new features that are present in contemporary software development environments. But still keeping in mind that if somebody's like a hardcore developer, they will very likely use their own hardcore development tools. Like when I go and program low-level web things, I program it in Nano, super low text-based editor. I don't even use Visual Studio like all people do. So the IDE is bringing this consistency, but also revamping the way things work. And it's adding a lot of new features like automatic upgrades of software, much better notifications, integration with new operating systems, and so on. Also, because as you know, the old one was made in Java, and Java was unfortunately been deprecated in all operating systems for security reasons. So we needed to make a change anyway. And also, I want to say that it was quite a journey. It has taken us a lot of time, among other things, because for the Arduino community, we need to have multi-language support, and that is not very common in the development environment softwares. Most of them made in English. So we have to make a very strong contribution to the community of the software production by providing libraries to support multilingual softwares, which didn't exist before. And that's a strong investment, economic investment from our side. So yeah, it was a great opportunity to participate in that project.
One of the things I found most exciting about the Arduino IDE when I first started and explored it for the first time was the use of C++ in an embedded environment. It really gave that object-oriented programming and sort of encapsulated things in a nice, convenient way for software reusability, which is a massive part of Arduino as a platform itself. But then now you're also branching out into new languages. You've got support for MicroPython. Do you think we can move to an environment where MicroPython is the way we program embedded, or is it still for sort of maybe niche applications and certain types of software developer?
Well, I think MicroPython offers for sure very interesting opportunities from a user experience once more. You know, it's like people that are used to Python and want to migrate to embedded. If they get a chance to use the same kind of syntax and so on, it's offering interesting opportunities. The thing is that what people don't know is that the MicroPython at low level is made in C. You know?
Yeah.
So, but it's very interesting when you already have like most of the libraries preloaded and you're just interpreting the code. And you have multiple programs stored in your board as if it was kind of like a small computer that has multiple softwares. So from that perspective, it offers a user experience that C doesn't offer. So I think that makes it interesting, because you could have your board with like 5-6 preloaded programs, for example, and then do different things. At the same time, we're still at a very early stage. So as you know, we just launched it, and we launched a special IDE that is also emerged from the community and so on. So it's still quite a lot of work to be done in it before we consider it strong enough for certain applications, while at the same time, through the collaboration we have with OpenMB, which is, as you know, one of the leads in the creation of open source technologies for computer vision, we have quite a strong position as well to use our boards in the OpenMB IDE, which is very good for doing very strong computer vision applications which really work, and they are programmed with MicroPython as well. So these are two entirely different contexts which overlap, and we have to see which is the one that works the best for our community. Now clearly OpenMB is fantastic for computer vision, but we have a lot of people that don't do computer vision, that we just want to do controlling a servo motor, and and they need something simpler and more accessible.
Now you mentioned the community. Obviously that's a big thing that's made Arduino the success it is, and a lot of the products at the beginning of your journey were focused on the maker community. You've recently sort of branched out and looked more at what let's say businesses and manufacturers in the industry want, and they want, I think, you know, they appreciate that flexibility and the speed of prototyping and getting products to market. So how is the Portenta range and the other sort of business focus boards coming into the market, and what's the reaction?
So first of all, the Portenta has offered us the possibility of showing that we have the muscle to do very advanced hardware. Because people tend to say like, oh, these guys at Arduino only make these toys, you know. And while the same processor was used in high-end PLCs, the same one we use for our main maker boards. But making Portenta has actually proven that we can do very advanced hardware that has is highly regarded in terms of security, that can connect to our cloud, that can connect to other clouds as well, and that can compute in many different aspects. As I said, you can actually run all MS-DOS on a Portenta board. So you can completely substitute all computers that you might have in production with a brand new Portenta board, and respect the old kind of like environment your machine was working with. So you can do things in bare metal, you can do things in emulation, and that was kind of needed. And also we created the Portenta X8, which is our latest Linux computer, which is a very strong machine as well, that is really aimed at complex industrial contexts where you need to have multiple processors, some of them maybe doing machine learning operations, and some of the processors doing like low-level access control to pins to, for example, run motors or read sensors. So that's a new thing for us. Well, not so new. We've been working with this for 3 years, but now it's really coming out to the market, and the response is pretty good.
And we have some articles in the magazine.
Yeah, exactly.
Arduino Pro specifically.
Exactly. So we've seen those there as well. I think one of the other interesting things is when as an electronics engineer, I've grown up with embedded and single board computers. but then there's another aspect. In industrial automation, for example, PLCs are used to control all this industrial machinery, and it's almost been a separate world. They're obviously programmable, but it's not the same sort of process as to developing an ECU for automotive or developing a coffee machine. Now, you're also tackling that market as well. You've just released the Opta, a micro PLC. Why tackle that as well on top? What are you seeing there?
Yeah. So what happens is that when we launched the first Portenta board, the first reaction from the market was, "Oh, can you put this into a PLC?" You know, and so we created, for example, the PMC, which is our first approach to the PLC market, which is a breakout board where you connect the Portenta board on it, and then you have like optocoupled outputs and so on, and you can do C programming of your own PLC. And of course, the first reaction for people was like, "Yeah, this is great, but we'd like to have DIN rail mounting devices with like shielded boxes, and of course, we want to program it into a different environment." I was like, "Okay, cool, let's do it." So Opta is the response to that question from the community when they said like, "Okay, you can clearly do this technology now. How can you make it more like closer to what we have now? Because people have a hard time transitioning, right?"
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the thing we launched, and has had a huge response actually, because it was just launched or announced a couple of weeks ago, and so people are like flooding our social media asking for these boards, and there's like a lot of pre-order requests because the board doesn't come out until December to the market. But yeah, so and I think it answers those questions that people have when they have been working traditionally with PLCs. Like, it has like the right boxing, or the right housing, sorry. It has the right power ranges and signal ranges, and on top of that, we're going to launch a PLC-based IDE for the programming. So you can of course program it into the Arduino IDE, but you will have other options as well.
Well, it all sounds exceptionally exciting. We'll be looking forward to seeing that come out, and I'm sure we'll cover it in the Elektor magazine as well. I just wanted to come back to CJ quickly. So we've got 140 pages of content, and we've talked about some of the interviews that we did with Arduino's, the staff at Arduino, to explore the technologies and the changes that are going on. What are the other pages covering? Have we got Arduino projects? Or?
Yes, so we have about 12 plus projects. I could give you a little teaser. MicroPython with Arduino, TinyML, so we know that's a hot topic right now, and so a TinyML with Arduino. We have a really cool article that David handled that deals with how artists are using Arduino in their creations, so that's pretty interesting.
The Mozzi library, so it's a very interesting article. Making music.
Yep.
Yeah. So Arduino and music is great. Gaming is also very popular among our community. So how to use Arduino in the gaming space, that's in there as well.
Super, fantastic.
We have a question too, it looks like, from the audience. Do you think beginners or students who started out on Arduino consumer boards and then graduate into the real world automation careers would choose Arduino Pro because of the loyalty that you fostered? That's a good question.
Well, we hope so, obviously. But well, to start with, this has already happened. You know, I have been in many situations where somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I'm an engineer at company XYZ, and you should know I studied with Arduino at high school. I should try at university, and at my company, I'm making this control system and using an Arduino Mega." You know, this has happened multiple times. Just change the name of the company and change the name of the board. So this is what inspired us, or gave us a hint of like, okay, maybe the maker community and the educational community is just the first step, and we believe that people will at least try out, and that gives us a power that other people don't have. You know, people might not have had the chance to try a certain type of machine because it was too expensive, but they tried an Arduino board, and then we'll come to the industrial space and say, "Oh, now I can use this Opta, for example, and substitute this other PLC like this is already here with this one, which I know how to program, which I trust, and it has, you know, same electrical capabilities, but you know, to start with, is better in software programming, and typically it's also cheaper. So yeah, so I hope to see a transition there.
Oh, it'd be lovely. I'm sure we could talk to you all day, David. Before we leave you, I'd just like to ask you one last question. Can you see collaboration with Elektor on any future projects?
Sorry, say it again. I had a bit of noise here.
No problem. I asked if you can see an opportunity to collaborate with Elektor again in the future on more projects.
Yeah, of course. I mean, until now, we've been working together. As I said, first I worked some articles some years ago, and then we had this opportunity of writing this special issue. So yeah, it would be great to keep the collaboration going. I think it has been very fruitful. People at Elektor are very serious. It was really a pleasure to work with them. And I love when somebody puts me a project manager that knows how to do things. So this is also a praise to CJ, who was like on top of it on a weekly basis, and hey guys, you're missing this. What about that? You know? And
I'm sorry.
no. I mean, I'm not being ironic. I'm actually being dead honest. Like I think things get done when you have people managing things in the right way, and I think that's been your role, and I think that has helped us also producing a lot of stuff, because there is a lot of like hidden knowledge both in Arduino, the company, but also in the Arduino community.
Yeah.
And this interaction has forced us to really look for it because we had a deadline and we had to bring it out, and we had to look for things that were interesting. So I definitely would like to see more collaborations in the future.
And it was a pleasure on our part as well, David, working with you. And we also do have some stuff planned video-wise in January, so stay tuned, everyone, for that.
Fantastic. Well, David, thank you ever so much for taking the time to join us today on our Mash-up show. I hope we can get you onto either Lab Talk or Elektor Engineering Insights again in the future to talk about some of the innovations, and we get to see the Opta at some point in the future and build some projects. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, stay tuned for the January show when you will see probably me frying an Elektor circuit accidentally.
If it gets there, yes.
Super. Thank you very much. We'll chat to you again soon.
Okay.
Thanks, David.
Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.
Super. So we were talking earlier as well about the Electronica show. We're here in Munich, where the Electronica show takes place every 2 years, where the whole electronics industry and semiconductor industry come together to show all the new technology that they've been developing, but also explain to us how their products can be used in specific types of applications. And I was just going to ask Jens, have you had the opportunity to look around?
Yes, I had. Finally, I was also very busy the last 2 days, but today I had finally the chance to go around a little bit. And of course, my first way was to the semiconductor halls, C2 to C5, I think. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there were very big booths, NXP, Infineon, ST, and so on, and they had very interesting applications. Yeah, they are all showing ready-made solutions, not so the distinct components. They are all showing, yeah, for example, a quadrocopter simulator or something like that, or cars and so on.
Yeah, I think there's a big focus at this show on demonstrating how the components actually then turn into applications and really guiding people to where to take things. I had an interesting meeting at TDK. They are well known for lots of their sensor technologies, lots of gyros, temperature sensors, and other components like microphones, very miniature microphones. And they've actually put a whole board together with a microcontroller and some motor controllers, and you can make a complete robot with a neural network for machine learning, and you can issue it with voice commands. And it's, you know, almost a plug-and-play solution, you know, all ready to go. So, anything else from your side that?
No, I'm just really excited about the Arduino announcement, and there's still some work to do on that because we have to get it translated into all these languages. But yeah, stay tuned for the edition in early December.
Fantastic. Yeah. So thank you also, CJ, for joining us here.
Okay.
We're going to switch you out now.
Udo.
So one of the other big parts of the Electronica and Productronica trade shows, which is the one that comes in between the Electronica trade show every other year, is the Fast Forward Award. Now, the Fast Forward Award is to look for startups with innovative new technologies and help them and provide them with a platform to show off what they're doing and also win a prize. There's a prize of 150,000 euros media budget, which allows those startups that win to go out and promote and share their news. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Technology is obviously very easy to put together for engineers. We can make solutions, but then the challenge is then getting the word out and finding the customer base beyond the people that are already convinced by the idea to actually go out there and share the news and find new customers. Leading that for Elektor is Udo Bormann, who joins us now. Hi, Udo.
Hi, Stuart. Hi, Jens. Nice to be here. And now you already said everything about Fast Forward, actually. So.
I'm sure there's a couple of points that we missed. So firstly, I'd like to ask, you are the director for Fast Forward and you make sure this opportunity happens for the community. When did it start?
Yeah, to start off, because we're at Electronica, because we're a publishing house, we also produced, of course, a nice article about it. But every startup, I just put it here in the camera, because you can see it. So every participant of Fast Forward this year is also at Electronica. It's a show and they have their own booth and I see smiling faces, so I hope they're happy. And yeah, so my part was basically also to get together with the team to think about it, which are the most promising and aspiring electronics engineering startups. So which startup in this big world of electronics has a capability of kind of changing it. So we looked into kind of, yeah, what options are there? There's a lot of existing technology, right? But we also talk about ethics this week, and we also wanted to show some startups which bring this ethical approach, sustainability approach to the next level. And yeah, again, we have nice participants. It's 9 participants this year, so we have startups which are now trying to make trees talk, which is great. So TreeSense is the name of it. We have Opulo here, which I don't say much more about it because later on there will be someone else talking about it.
Very exciting.
And yeah, I think it's a nice variety, and we do it since 6 years now. So 2016 Electronica show was the first time we did it. And yeah, it was actually just an experiment between Electronica, Messe Munich and Elektor. And they basically, the industry asked for, hey, we need some innovation, we need some young talent here on the trade fairs. Can you somehow make it work? And that's when Elektor also stepped in and said, yeah, sure, we are a publishing house, we can announce something, right?
We've got the reach.
And it was really a test balloon, and that it really developed 6 years after in something like that. I think that's really nice for everyone, for the startups, for Messe Munich, but also for Elektor, and I think we can be proud.
Yeah, I think so as well. 6 years of the competition going on, what has happened to the previous winners? Are there any highlights there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let me think about one. Like 2016 was, you have to say, we also changed the model from time to time. So 2016 we had a section which was called Ideas. So you don't have to be necessarily a startup. You can just pitch your idea without having a prototype, just by showing the schematics and then convince the people there. That was the guy, he was called Artem from Kevazzo. And his idea was basically he wanted to revolutionize the scaffolding business, right? And it was all manual work, there was no automation whatsoever. It was super unhealthy and super unreliable and labor consuming. So he brought up the idea to just build up a robot who brings up all the material, so it's really healthier for the workers, it's more efficient, and it's also cheaper for the company who has to build the house. And 6 years later, they have been at the trade fair 2 weeks ago at Bauma, having their own booth, presenting their real machine to the world of manufacturers and house builders. And now they have their first clients and really bring out the technology. Yeah. And that's just one example out of few. So I think we have right now a rate of 90% surviving quote.
Wow,
so
that's high.
They all really made it and they achieved it. And I think Electronica, Fast Forward, that was maybe one of the, not key moments, but it was at least the first step to enter really a market, and it helped them to achieve what they are now.
Yeah.
Today I even discovered a product which I maybe will buy myself, the
Wow.
AirHoods.
Yeah, nice one
Very-
as well. Definitely. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, Jens, we've got the stand here where Electronica, Elektor's on one side, and we're showing the magazines and the books that we produce and showing how we make the magazine. But around,
Traditionally, yes.
around the rest of the booth, we've got the startups. I mean, AirHood was one. It's a kitchen appliance. Maybe you'd like to explain what you saw in that and why it's interesting.
It's actually a small device which aspires grease and steam when you cook something.
I think there's
So
a nice
if you have a
modification of
if you have a small kitchen and you cannot have a big hood,
Yeah.
then I think it's a nice device.
Yeah, and actually that's a super nice topic because I talked to them, where of course we did, and they told me, yeah, this trade fair might not be the right fit in the first day.
Yeah.
The second day, I went back to them and I said, how was the second day for you guys? And they were like, there was just so many great ideas. Electronic engineers, they solder, that is also a lot of pollution basically, and they don't want to really have it and breathe it in. And they're just they're small devices already, but they could actually transform their KitchenAid into something like a fume extractor, right? So I think that's also why a trade fair for startups is super nice, because they get input from the engineers directly, and they can work it in, because they're also in a process where they still can change things drastically if they want to.
I think that's also the nice thing. We've spent, because of Corona, so many years having these events cancelled. Now, Electronica's here the first time for 4 years. It was a 4-year break. And I think it's easy to underestimate the power of interaction. You meet so many people. There's 70,000 visitors here walking around, and you just get the exchange of ideas and that ability to look over beyond the industries that you normally play in.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's not just for major industry important, also for startups to build up a network, get connections, and definitely a thing we did the last year, but I think it's for a publishing house, it's a lot of work to do that. But every time you come here at the end of the year in November and you're like relieved that it happens, but then you look again in the startup's face and you're like, yeah, okay, we did something right here, right?
Yeah.
And we helped them to maybe go
make
to
a
the next
difference.
step and make a difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what also Elektor is staying for, that we try to develop ourselves every time again and again. Now we're trying out YouTube live streams, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is also something we learn from on the other side from the startup.
If I remember correctly, you're part of the Fast Forward Award jury, so you'll have some say in who's going to win. What criteria have you put in place for those startups this year? What have you been looking for?
So because I'm not technical engineering from my background, I looked really more into this ethical, sustainable ideas. And also, of course, is business-wise this technology something that we can really good promote? Because I'm also a marketeer myself. So I looked in those 3 aspects, and then I made my grading according to that. Exactly.
And in terms of the prize, what is the prize? How many awards are there, and what happens then for the winners? What's their experience afterwards?
Really important, of course. The startups get a media budget, which is a total of 150,000, and we select 3 winners. So the first one gets 75, second 50, third one 25,000. And what we do then is we go to the startup, gives them that, of course, as a media budget, and they can use it for 1 year long in 2023, and then promote their startup via our channels, via our media channels. And that's something where they can benefit from, because it is, of course, expensive also to go out to promote the technology.
Yeah.
And we are a media house, and that's also one of our strengths. We are connected to the key player in the industry, we are connected to the engineers, so we can make it happen that this startup, one of the winners, really gets an attention there.
Well, I'm really excited because the award ceremony will be taking place tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So that will be the end of the worrying and thinking and hoping for our startups. We'll have 3 winners tomorrow, and naturally you'll get to find out more about that on the electormagazine.com website, and also we'll probably be writing about it in the magazine in more detail as well. So
Exactly.
yeah, looking forward to that. Now, one of the nice things, of course, about these events, as we said, is the opportunity to meet people, and we've invited one of our Fast Forward Award participants along to join us in our Mash-up, so he can also experience our Mash-up too. Come and join us now, Stephen Hawes. So
Let's
take
switch
us.
places.
Yeah, you're going to replace Udo. I thought there was another stall down here.
How's it going, guys?
Good, nice to see you, Stephen. So you're from a company called Opulo, and you have a new solution. Do you want to tell us what that is, what it's called, and how it came about?
Absolutely. So Opulo makes the Lumen PNP, which is a desktop pick and place machine. So if you need to make a whole bunch of boards, like a lot of them, like iPhone scale, you're going to a contract manufacturer, you're making the boards like at another place. If you're making 5 or 10, you might just hand assemble them. But in between, there's not a lot of great solutions for making them. I did a Kickstarter in 2019 where I had to make, it was like 100 light up bow ties. It was just a goofy little project. And
I was surprised. I thought you were going to wear your bow tie today.
You
So
know,
your photo online is always with the bow tie.
I thought about it. I thought about bringing it. I kind of regret not, honestly. I probably should have. But yeah, I have one left after the Kickstarter. I saved one of them. But yeah, and it was a huge pain. I had only had to make 100 of them, but it took me like nights and weekends for months to hand populate. I think it was over 3,000 components I had to put on by hand. It was dreadful. So I looked into, do I buy one? They were like $50,000, or they weren't that good. And then I tried to outsource it. It doubled the cost of the glow tie. I was like, how hard could this be? Naively thinking it's really that easy. And started going down that path of developing it, and now we have it available for sale. People use it all over the world for making their boards, doing contract work, and it's just been awesome. It's been incredible.
So you've got a pick and place machine. So just to sort of take a step back and clarify.
Sure.
So when we're manufacturing printed circuit boards, the position of all the components is there on the board. That's information which is stored digitally on the computer and is generated as we make the circuit board.
Yeah.
And then what we need is a machine that can take those components. Components are also delivered in a certain format. They're normally on a reel.
Right.
It's called tape and reel process. And then there's some sort of suction head which takes those components out one by one, puts them in the right place, and also, of course, solder paste as another challenge as
sure.
well. So,
Yeah.
so your machine does solder pasting and the suction as well for the placement?
It's just the placement.
Right.
Yeah. When you get the board, it's effectively a panel of wires, right?
Yes.
The parts aren't on there yet.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, with people that aren't familiar with electronics, will say it just picks up the parts and puts them down, and they're like, "That's it." It's very hard to do that very precisely. Like it's a very tricky process, and like it has to happen somehow.
Yeah.
So yeah, what our thing does is after you put on the solder paste with typically a stencil is how
Right.
you'll do it. You'll squeegee the paste across the board, which is effectively flux with a bunch of little metal balls floating in it.
Yeah.
Then you place all the parts on there with the Lumen PNP, and then you put it into a reflow oven, and it turns that solder paste into molten metal, and that affixes all the parts electrically and mechanically onto your board. So you can get the boards made very inexpensively, all kinds of board shops, but actually getting them assembled, that's where it starts to get difficult and expensive. But yeah, you just pull the design file out of your ECAD, whatever you design it in,
Yeah.
and then the machine can take it from there.
Now, with your product, like you said, you saw this issue. I've got a challenge here.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the Lumen PNP today compared to the first prototype that you put together?
Oh man, all kinds of
They
stuff.
work.
They work. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a prototype if it didn't have some problems, Yeah, all kinds of stuff. I mean, in the early days, I didn't even have a Z-axis. I was just playing with rotating and suction and what kind of pump do you use. A really interesting thing that we learned is when you suck up a part and you go to place it, you can't just turn off the pump. There's still a vacuum. You have a pretty good seal
Right.
through all of your pneumatic line. You actually have to vent that line to atmosphere so that air will rush in and allow the part to fall. Took me way too long to learn that lesson, but eventually I did, and it works out great now. Now we have a little three-way valve, and when we're picking apart, the nozzle tip is connected to a little pump that's just mounted underneath the machine, and then when it comes time to drop it off, we switch it to atmosphere, a bunch of air goes through, and it drops the part off. So that, for example, is a huge thing that we added.
Yeah.
Many, many, many things that we've added in, for sure, but that's one of the bigger ones.
Now, one of the other big challenges for the electronics industry as well is when, firstly, the parts are all different sizes.
Yeah.
You have LQFP packages, they can be 6, 8, 10 millimeters on the side.
Yeah.
We go right down to very small passive components. They can be down to a millimeter at their smallest.
Yeah.
those, and also there's orientation issues as well. I've worked for semiconductor vendors where we've had two different product numbers for the same products. It's just the orientation of the chip in the tape is different.
In the tape is actually different, really?
Yeah.
And it's a whole different part number.
It's a different part number.
Oh,
just
man.
The tape orientation.
Sure.
So yeah, how do you deal with that with your solution? Because obviously you've got all those different reels of different widths, different size of components.
Yeah, that's a tricky one for sure. The thing that makes the Lumen PNP able to work is vision. We have two cameras in the machine, and that machine vision is what lets you get precise enough to place. We go down to 0402. You can place 0402 with it. With the, most of it's 3D printed parts, but the cameras allow any misalignment or anything to just be calibrated out really, really well.
Yeah.
So the bottom camera is really where most of that happens. When the nozzle picks the part, it'll hold it over the bottom camera, and we have a ring light that shines light around it from all sides, and we can take effectively a black and white picture of what the part looks like, and we can figure out what the orientation is and what the offset is of the part on the nozzle tip while it's suspended with the pump, and then it can place it much more accurately.
Yeah.
And you can just program that in software. Change the shape of the part, what's it looking for, what orientation are you looking for, and it can support, we place TQFP 100s on our boards all the time. Some people use it for BGA, all kinds of stuff. But you just have to change what it looks for in the software.
So Jens, I was going to ask you, do you have an opportunity still to make a lot of boards and do soldering, or is that something that you don't have time for?
No, unfortunately not. That would be cool. That would be quite nice.
Yeah, exactly. No, I unfortunately I have very little time for engineering and making anymore, but I used to be quite proud of the fact that I could read the markings on 0603 resistors with bare eyes.
Sure.
That is no longer possible.
It's hard.
On 0603, and then smaller than that.
No way, yeah.
So I'd also like to know, if we were to visit your home and go through the rugs or the carpets, how many surface-bound components would we find?
So many. It's not even funny. It's funny you mention that. In the room where we run SMT at our office, we sweep up every Thursday afternoon at 4 p.m. is cleanup.
Right.
And the first thing we do is we sweep up that room and, just parts. There's all kinds of little passes. It's impossible for it to not at some point, But yeah, my carpet is, sometimes I find them just in my clothes, they're all over the place. They're all over the place, yeah.
So what are you hoping for out of the Fast Forward Awards? Why is this important to be here and have this opportunity in this platform?
Well, first of all, to just be here has been absolutely incredible. The amount that I have learned talking to people about different things, I didn't really realize. You guys were just talking about it earlier of it's so beneficial to be in person, to just talk with a bunch of people about stuff. I've missed it so much.
Yeah.
Just being able to hear what other people think about stuff. A lot of people mention wanting to use it for prototyping. And we really talk about it as a manufacturing tool, but they're like, yeah, I have to make 20 boards. I just don't want to make those 20 myself.
Yeah.
This would be useful for me, and I never really thought about it that way. So we kind of learned that here. So just being here has been incredible, just for that. So thank you for having us and hosting us for that. It's been wonderful. Also, we have been kind of sharing the Lumen PNP through a YouTube channel, and that's really been our early adopter market. People that are interested in the R&D and in the details of how the machine is made. But now we're trying to also keep that in internal community, but also expand to companies that could actually use it for their business. And YouTube does some of that, but a marketing budget with Elektor very much would help us look into that larger range and kind of not just the early adopters, but some of the that first wave of a larger group.
Users.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's really why we're really excited about it.
Yeah, super.
Yeah.
Well, and the other interesting thing as well is, of course, that anyone can already go and make one, can't they?
That's true. Yes, exactly. Yeah, everything about the Lumen PNP is 100% open source. All of the software, the hardware. We even make sure that all of the CAD that we use to design it is cross-platform. It also happens to be open source as well. So it doesn't matter what operating system you run. If you don't want to spend the money on CAD packages, you can download it and build it yourself. And hundreds of people have already.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Great community. Yeah.
Now, in my experience, I've worked in the electronics industry for 20 years, and very often for large American corporations. And there's obviously a very big focus on revenue, profit, shareholder value, and all the rest of it.
Sure.
And I'm a little bit older than you, probably double your age. We've seen Arduino's been a big success. That's an open source hardware environment. Was there any question in your mind that this shouldn't be open source?
No. I've always wanted to start a hardware company, and I've always wanted it to be open source, and that was never really up for debate.
Yeah.
I had seen a few people do it before. Prusa out of the Czech
yeah.
Republic, great example of this as well, open hardware. The way I see it is the whole point of why we're doing it is to make it easier for people to make stuff.
Yeah.
And if we close off the source, that is antithetical to the point of why we're doing it. And like, don't get me wrong, we got to keep the lights on.
Yes,
But Nathan Seidel from SparkFun, who guest wrote, I think last year, right?
That's right, with the magazine with the
Yeah,
last year,
he gives a great TED talk about open hardware and like how it's actually beneficial in many ways. Like our community is constantly playing around with the design, giving us feedback, making pull requests that we then implement into it and make the design better because of it. It's better. I mean, even from a capitalistic perspective, I truly believe it's better. But also from like where do we stand about what feels right? You know, what feels helpful? What's our mission? Why are we actually doing this? It also feels like the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's fascinating, and I'm really excited to hear your feedback, especially on the open source side as well. That's something that's I've had to develop and reconsider my thinking.
Sure.
About.
Oh, it's a tough one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, thank you ever so much. We wish you every success tomorrow. Please get some sleep.
I will try.
Don't stay awake all night.
I won't.
And yeah, we'd be grateful to have you back on in the future, either on Lab Talk or Elektor Engineering Insights, and find out more about how everything's gone.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you
Thanks.
very much. So there we have it, Stephen Hawes with his Lumen PNP open source project for pick and place machines. For, as we saw there, basically the target was to make small production runs, but then talking to people here, realised there's also people that want to do even just prototyping 20 boards at a time, which I can fully understand, having spent some time in the automotive industry and seeing just how many components are on those boards. Well, we're rapidly coming towards the end of our Mash-up show today. This is a live stream from Elektor at the Electronica 2022 exhibition. I'm here with Jens Nickel, half of Lab Talk. Now, Jens, one of the things I wanted to ask is if you could tell us a little bit more about the Lab Talk show. How often is it on, and what do you and Matthias get up to?
Of course, we have the Lab Talk show once a month at the moment, so it's always at the last Thursday in a calendar month, so it will be next Thursday, hopefully again with Matthias. Thumbs up.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are talking about what's playing on the market, interesting devices, of course about interesting Elektor projects, the latest magazine and so on. So, and what is an interesting part of the show is really showcasing something, really Matthias playing around with some boards and blinking LEDs and so on. Yeah, hopefully we reveal something about video output of microcontrollers in the next show, because that's the main subject of the January-February edition, and I will work on it from tomorrow on again.
Super.
So I will go home this night, and tomorrow I will be again in the office.
Sounds
working
good.
on the next magazine.
On the next magazine issue. Now, the other thing about Lab Talk, it started, I think, more or less at the beginning of the year. Looking back on, you've got 10, 12 shows probably behind you now. What was your highlight? What was the best stuff you've done?
We had many good shows, of course. What's really nice is when we have guests. So, for example, I think it was the previous last show we had David from Make Magazine, California, and we are planning to have a lab talk with David from Arduino.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's planned for January, and yeah, you should definitely watch it.
And for those who've not spent much time on YouTube and the Elektor website, where can they find out about the next shows, and where do they see the videos?
Electromagazine.com is always the entry to all content at Elektor, and there is a menu item, I think it's called Shows, and there you can find a sub-menu item, Lab Talk.
Lovely.
And there you can find all the shows and of course the next show also.
Excellent. And we also have our own dedicated channel on YouTube. So if you look for Elektor TV, you'll find Lab Talk Show. There's a dedicated playlist for that. And also for my show, Elektor Engineering Insights. Now, Elektor Engineering Insights has also been running since the beginning of the year. And my focus is more on the industry topics. Part of the show is inviting engineers from all aspects of our community into our environment and asking them how they actually implement particular types of technology and finding out about new technologies that are being brought to market. Over the last 12 months, we've interviewed automotive experts talking about software-defined vehicles. We've looked at wide bandgap technologies such as SiC and GaN, finding out how that makes power supplies more efficient, saves energy, and contributes to sustainability from electronic solutions. So take a look at that. Also, my upcoming shows are listed under electromagazine.com/EEI, and there you'll find out what we're doing. Next year, we're going to be doing 2 shows per month. And if you have any topic that you'd like to share with us, if you'd like to join on to show what you've been working on and share your expertise with the community, we'd love to have you on anytime. So Jens, how was this show for you?
Very exciting. Electronica is the biggest fair dealing with electronics. I also like, of course, the embedded world, but Electronica is a show of its own.
It's a special size.
The size and all these international people coming. So yeah, it was really exciting, but now I'm also a little bit tired.
Exactly, yeah. I'd just like to say thank you from my side for the support here at the Electronica show. You've managed to pull all this technology together for us so that I can sit in front of the camera and just do the talking. So thank you for getting it all together and get it working and all the connection. It's been a real pleasure to be with you, and also for all the collaboration this year on the magazine. It's been great fun and I really appreciate it. Super. So there we have it. That's the end of this mashup. We will definitely do another one in the future. Please stay in touch, subscribe, like, join us wherever you like to see your social media. Me personally, you can always find on LinkedIn as well. So reach out to me, connect, follow, write me an email, get in touch and tell us what you've been working on. That's it from Electronica 2022 for the Elektor team. Stay in touch and we shall see you in another episode soon.